Okay, we're here, we're live, we're at ThinkTech Talks. We're catching up with Kakaako, which we do every Wednesday at 3 p.m. We're here with Don Goo, AIA, a retired architect, used to be a principal, and I'm sure he's closely associated even now with was it Wimberley, Allison, Tong, and Goo. Did I get that right?
You got that right.
All right. This is a very respected, prestigious architecture firm in the state, and therefore he's had a full career of architecture. We want to know everything from him. We want to know his inner thoughts about architecture in the city and urban spaces today. We're calling this show Building Urban Spaces in Honolulu.
And you want to know all of that in 30 seconds.
Well, 45 minutes.
Okay, 45.
It's a luxury of time.
Okay.
So tell us about why you got into architecture, what you studied, and what your orientation is.
Well, I'm lucky. I started out in Kalihi, and I just put an X next to architecture because it was more interesting than engineering. And it indeed has been. It really has been a wonderful career. So my orientation at the time that I was working in the firm was basically in creating hospitality architecture. And it started off in Hawaii, and it went to California, and went across to London, and now in Singapore.
You're saying we invented something here.
Basically we invented hospitality architecture. And because it didn't exist before, we could do what we wanted. It's a good thing that we depended on the culture of the place to help the person that visited understand. They want to learn about another culture. So that's what we did, and we did it all over the world. We started in the Pacific, went to Asia, went to Europe, went to the U.S. mainland. So we're all over the world.
That's true, and these architecture firms, namely Wimberley, Allison, Tong, and Goo, had jobs all over Asia. You left your signature in many, many places, and where there was no signature before.
That's right. We were just given an innovation award, and they asked us, what did you do? And we said what we did. We didn't have any model to follow because there was no model to follow. We were the first, and so we made things up as we went along. And good thing we had great clients who depended on us to satisfy their visitors and pay a good fee for staying in their hotel.
So what were the elements that you have focused on, delivered? I mean, I could make a guess and say open spaces would be a big part of that.
Well, in a hotel, there are two parts.
Yeah.
There's a part where people sleep, and we did well. We provided them all the different comforts and the increasing comforts year after year, more things and more things. But the real secret to our work was what we did on the public level, the ground level, the pedestrian level, what we did inside the building and outside the building, how we adapted the culture and the arts into the design of the building. People felt they were learning about the place. And we were very fortunate because people said, well, architects say that they always make money for their clients. Well, we said that too. And then somebody challenged us. So we set a person to finding out how we could prove that. And we did. We found out that our architecture for the various major hotel companies was $50 higher per available room night.
It commanded another $50.
Another $50 per room, per night. If it was a 300-room hotel and 350 days in the year, that's a lot of money.
And this was because what? The market, including the wholesalers who sell these rooms, but also the public who buy these rooms.
The public liked it.
They liked it.
They were willing
a good experience.
They were willing to pay that extra money.
Okay, and it's really something important here, and that is you were creating an experience for them that was $50 better than the next guy.
That's right.
And the experience meant that psychologically, because architecture is largely psychological, I think, somebody walked in there, better feeling, a better sense of place, excuse the expression, yeah. a better, a more enjoyable place to be.
I'll tell you a story. There was a lady here from Honolulu, and she said, "Oh, you're the architect." You did the hotel at Disneyland. He says, we really loved it. When she and her kids walked in, they all were quiet. It was a special place. You know, when you can create that kind of emotion by your visitor, your guest, it's worth $50 more.
Can you give us examples of some of the hotels you've done?
Well, I'll say
Two or three.
The companies. Four Seasons Hotel on Maui. Four Seasons Hotel in California. We've done Hilton hotels. We've done the Palace of the Lost City in Africa. So we've done hotels for many of the different major operators around the world.
And the operators come to you for this reason, because they want to provide that special experience.
And they don't tell us what they want. They say, we want something that's attractive, like you did over there. And we say, okay, but we're going to make it feel like it belongs to this place.
You're going to adapt it, sure.
To this place.
Sure. So now this also kind of, let me go back one step and say that if you've had a career in this, you've built yourself, a philosophical approach based on it, I guess, is that you care about providing space that gives people a good experience. That's what it's about for you, Don Goo.
Yeah, that's right. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
So now, fast forward, Kakaako.
Okay.
Here we are. What are the considerations in this special, location in the center of the city, between downtown and we're going to call it the shopping district, if you will, or Waikiki? What are the special elements of that that are appropriate to create that special experience there?
Well, it's really a bigger hotel. It's what happens at the ground floor. It's what I call that pedestrian experience, whether it's in the hotel or it's in the Kakaako district. Now, in the Kakaako district, what's interesting about that is that, I think you went to the mayor's meeting. He has this idea about the cultural district. That's Mauka of...
The Capital Cultural District.
Yeah. That's Mauka of the Kakaako Mauka.
Yeah.
And then Makai of Kakaako Mauka is the OHA owned property on the ocean.
Yeah.
So how do you create a pedestrian experience for all of these 30,000 residents?
Which is integrated. Which is not
integrated.
separate areas, but
which
one
is,
area.
Which is put together.
Yeah.
And the problem with putting it together is that it is now governed by two agencies, governmental agencies, and has 3 developers. So how do you put that together and have them conform to a common vision where they already have a vision for what they have? What causes them to want to come together? And that's really our challenge.
Yeah, well, but from a governmental point of view, I think you raise a really important question. So you have this area, you want to connect it up, you want it to have similar design points so that it feels like it's connected, but there's no agency that is really dedicated. No single agency dedicated to doing that. So you have the city, you have the state, you have maybe the Capital Cultural District, you have multiple developers, all of whom have their own vision, which is, going to be, what do you call it, value engineering often, and have the rail, all these things that don't necessarily pull together. So where's the white knight who comes in and says, hold it, boys, let me show you?
Well, I always look for the white knight that has money to do the work.
Sure.
So we have 3 developers. They have money to do the work. They just need to agree to agree. And they need to see a common vision that they will benefit from as well as the public. So it's up to the white knight to demonstrate that. And that's maybe what is coming about today.
You think so?
Yeah.
Well, I think, as what you said before, is they would benefit by X dollars per hotel night, if you will, or condo night, as the case may be, if the place could develop an experience, a signature all around in every direction, not just that one building, that was pleasing to people. and that's worth money. And that is an incentive for them to work together.
Well, see, what they have now is basically a residential area.
Yeah.
They have not made the connection to the Capital Cultural District. They have not made the connection to the Mackay Ocean Park. So the connection becomes that common thread. So what if we had a tree-shaded pedestrian promenade going Mauka to Mackay? And as a retail owner, you would say, I would like to be along that promenade because that's where people will see my goods. That's valuable.
Champs-Élysées.
Champs-Élysées, yeah, that's right. So you create that.
Yeah.
And then you need to make each of the destinations, the cultural center, a destination that is attractive. And what is attractive in Hawaii? Food and beverage and entertainment. So
What about culture itself?
culture itself is part of it, yes.
I mean, if I have food and entertainment, and the entertainment is cultural,
Yes.
like maybe we used to have more of this than we do today, and that I have, not museum things, but little places that have historical context,
So what would you do in the cultural district? You've got the theater, the music theater.
Yes.
They do dance there.
Yes.
And you've got the Linikona School. They teach art there.
Yes.
And you got the museum. They have art there. And what they don't have there really is enough food.
Food is the binder.
And music.
And music,
music, and a safe environment.
yes.
So I think that can be created and become a destination of this dumbbell.
Well, I absolutely agree. And I think these things are, not only are these things useful to the guys who buy the $1 million condos, but they're useful to the people who come from all parts of the island to enjoy whatever it is that's going on.
So if we're going to do these things, these are changes. And these are changes that require changes to the rules we created 30, 40 years ago. So whenever you have changes, then who pays for the changes? Well, if the changes will be profitable, they can be paid for by the developer. And so what normally happens in other communities, there are incentives for public benefit. I don't think we have a culture of understanding benefits, incentives for public benefit.
For the common good.
Yeah. Usually we are opposed to things because they fail to follow the standards that we created 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
We need to feel comfortable in creating new standards and comfortable in giving something away
Yeah.
in exchange for something. It's not one way. It cannot be one way. If
Yeah.
it's one way, it doesn't happen.
So let me go back to a point you made a few minutes ago, and that is, the most efficient way to put this together as an integrated neighborhood is through the developers themselves, because they have the money.
And convince them how to do it.
How to do it. Right, you got to show them. I mean, and really, I have to say that nobody better than an architect to show them. Nobody more credible either than an architect to show them. But there's a couple of things in play here. So one is you have these guys who could do this and arguably should do this to catch up on what you're talking about. The other thing is you have a public opinion problem here, because the public has to be behind this or it's futile. It's not going to happen. And we don't have the right, what do you want to call it, environment for public opinion yet. So you got some serious questions here about how you get the developers to recognize this reality, and how you get the people to be willing to change the rules and take a more active role.
There was a time before, long time ago, in the 60s or 70s, there was an organization called Oahu Development Conference. It was funded by about 50 businesses, local businesses. And they hired a planner from the mainland, and they hired an architect, and they had an executive secretary.
Before you tell me what they did, we got to take a break. Okay? Sorry. That's Don Goo. You're making me feel sorry. He's a retired principal of Wimberley, Allison, Tong & Goo, a very well-known architectural firm, not only here but around the world. And we're talking about Kakaako here to the 3 and 4 block, catching up on Kakaako. We're talking about building urban spaces right here. We'll be right back.
Aloha, this is Keli'i Akina. It's my privilege to be the host of Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. Ehana Kako, what does that mean? Well, many people have heard of Epule Kako, let's pray together. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Let's work together to build a better economy, government, and society. And every week, Monday, from 2 to 3 o'clock, you will see movers and shakers and other people who are working together to build a better economy, government, and society. Again, I'm Keli'i Akina on the Ehana Kako weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. Aloha. See you here Mondays, 2 to 3.
Back, we're live. I'm here having a good time with Don Goo, a retired principal of Wimberley, Allison, Tong & Goo, a very well-known architectural firm here in Hawaii. We're talking about catching up in Kakaako. We're talking about building urban spaces. And before we had the break, Don was talking about the Special Planning Coalition and what happened with it and what we can learn from it maybe today.
This special organization did was created a consensus of individuals. They educated individuals about design issues, one-way streets, tall buildings, density, those things. And the education was with high school teachers, intermediate school teachers, elementary, plumbers, carpenters, government employees, accountants, all in small groups. And they learned some words. They had a common definition. Today, I don't think our community has a common definition about urban design. I think we need that in order to create this consensus that will encourage the developers to make changes.
So how far did this group get? Is it still in existence?
No. It did its job. It was the issues of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Today we have different issues, environmental issues, urban issues. So I think we need another group like this.
And who would be in the group?
Who would be in the group? I think we need the same leaders. We need a very senior planner that can convince people that here's some good information and it's credible. Needs somebody that can draw and illustrate these different concepts, and needs an executive. And we need that group to go out and, again, the same way, help people learn about the issues and having common definitions. A lot of times when I listen to public debates, the responses are all over the map. They're not talking about the same thing. So we need that common definition.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when you have that you can have agreement. It's as simple as a common dispute or a urban problem.
Well, give me an example of what the definition and the agreement might be. I think this is really an important thing that you're talking about, and the people have to participate. I told you before the show about this speech that Michael Kimmelman made at Yale about public spaces, the resurgence of interest, not only by the design professionals, but by the public around the world, a lot in Europe, for example, about designing public spaces that will give people a good experience in their daily lives, in their cities where they live. So query, what would you seek as the consensus?
I would seek for people to understand, for one example, the issue of building heights. We have a limit of somewhere around 350 feet. And it's an arbitrary limit. It used to be 200, then 300. And now it's more than that, and we're making exceptions to it. So what's significant about a building height?
You can see.
You can see. Okay. So if it's lower, you can see over them. But let's say I would like to build my building taller and provide more space around the building on the ground level so that you can enjoy the landscaping, you can walk, you can drink coffee, you can do all those things at the pedestrian level, where there's landscaping, where there's shade, where there's breezes that come from the trade winds.
Champs-Élysées.
Yeah, which do you want? Would you be willing to give up 10 feet, 20 feet? You know, what would you be willing to give up in order to have a better pedestrian experience? So we can have a discussion with the senior school teachers and the intermediate school teachers and convert it at the different language levels. So it's, you know, what do you want? What are you willing to give up in order to get something?
Well, it seems to me that you're seeking a public conversation about this,
Yes.
where lots of people, I mean, not everyone, but lots of people who are following the action here in the development of our city are actively engaged in trying to build this consensus and trying to negotiate these points.
Yeah, well, the negotiating the points it's not the right time to educate people when you're in the heat of a battle.
Okay.
So we can't do that with a specific project. That's what was good about ODC. It wasn't a specific project. It was a general education about design. So today we need to do the same thing. And I would say that it took about 3 years or so before I began to see one-way streets adopted, which was a no-no before that. You know, Aaron said, streets are for moving vehicles, not for parking cars. Interesting concept.
Okay. I mean, why not think these thoughts again? Why not rethink everything?
I think it's appropriate. I think it's time for our community to say, let's do this. And I would like to see our business leaders say, let's do this. You know, there is something that I was made aware of recently. Our utilities are really old and decrepit. We need to fix it. And we always don't have enough money to do that. We have to have a special budget, a special tax. So we need some overall problems understood so that we can fund them.
I get the sense, though, that you're not, just as you're not limiting this planning consciousness to one project or even one group of projects, you're talking about the whole city,
Yeah, I am.
every neighborhood.
But I think Kakaako is a very special part of that because it is not, planning Kakaako is not the same as planning Kailua.
Sure.
It is going to be a higher density place.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the term smart growth? Smart growth
I've
really,
heard it. I can't define it for you.
Smart growth really means that you're going to build where there's other buildings rather than build where there's no buildings. In other words, you would keep the open space and build where there are buildings, there are roads, there are utilities, and be more buildings in that area, which means more height and more density. And most people say, well, you can't do that. We need open space. Well, we need a combination of things. When we build more taller buildings, more dense buildings, we need to also add parks. We need to add schools. We need to add lots of different things. It's not just about one thing that we relax. There's a quid pro quo, a public benefit for the incentive that is given.
But let me ask you a gadfly question. You know, Hawaii hasn't done well in developing beautiful cities. You know, we have some buildings that are nice. We have some beautiful hotels, for example. But in general, I mean, we have Kapakahi. Take a look at the university is probably a good example. It's Kapakahi. It's everybody, me first kind of thing, and nobody cares about what's across the street. And so those places have been built, and their useful life is maybe hundreds of years. Other neighborhoods have gone to pot, and nobody wants to redevelop them because they're land banking them. They're waiting to make a killing on selling it to a developer. But you know, the neighborhood itself stands as a sample of deterioration. And you know, my question to you is can this idea of yours really be done, or is it simply too late for us?
No, it's not too late. It's not too late. Now, a lot of those buildings are not redeveloped because the rules have old standards. And if you tried to redevelop it, you would get less building. So what if you have more building? Can you get something else for it? It's a trade. It's knowing how to bargain for the public benefit.
Well, let me convert the question into a question about entitlement.
Okay.
So I'm a developer.
Yeah.
There are a few who have. I have my permit. I haven't started yet, but I'm about to build, and I've got my money.
Yeah.
And I've got my design, and I've got approved. I got stamps all over my plans, and I'm in the old model. My building is not going to be a friendly building. Sorry, whatever reason it is, it's not going to be friendly. So, is it too late there? Is it too late for somebody to come to that developer and say, you know what, you should be on a different path. We want to connect Mauka and Mackay. We want to have a beautiful experience. We want to have promenades and Champs-Élysées. We'd like you to change the 40-foot concrete wall and make it friendly. What happens?
What happens? Well, first of all, I need to understand how much are you building. If you're building on a 100 square foot lot, I'd say, well, go ahead.
It's no consequence.
But if you're building on 30 acres, and it can't get all done one time, even though you have the permit, because the market won't absorb all of those buildings, I'd say, Jay, what if you were able to do this? What if I allowed you to build twice the height, and you did it on half the footprint? And in addition to that, would you build a Hawaiian Music Hall of Fame for me? And you'd figure, well, twice the height.
Gives me some extra money.
Gives you some extra money, and you can pay for these other things and still make money.
And my condo is a better experience. It's worth more.
That's right. Higher value.
Yeah.
And guess what happens? If it's higher value, the city gets more taxes.
True.
Right? And we need taxes in order to do all the other things that we need to do. See, it all works. So the incentives for public benefit needs to be completely looked at. And it depends on how much you're asking for, or how much the public is asking for.
Okay, well, I think part of that, and we should spend a little time here in this discussion about it, is trying to create a civilized dialogue where the people who come together and offer these thoughts, the people who try to have these negotiations and offer negotiating points, like height for lateral space, are not treated as activists, and not treated as naysayers or obstructionists. They're part of a legitimate, recognized process. Because if we can get to that, we got to take a break, but right after the break, if we can get to that, it seems to me like we've got a nirvana going. We've got a model going, such as the model you've built in hotel experiences, that the world would benefit by. If we can bring the community into a nice, civilized conversation where everybody participates, give and take, full understanding, full education about the need for housing, the need for space, the need for height, the need for a developer to make a profit. We can put all these things together without raising our voices, we will have a new and better world.
We are at that point in Kakaako. They've got their plans, they're ready to go, they've got their approvals, but it's going to take time for them to develop it. The market isn't completely there for everything. 30,000 people just don't show up overnight and put down money for their apartment.
Sure.
So there's time to put it together. It may not be as perfect as it would be if we planned it yesterday, but the day after tomorrow is better than nothing at all.
Well, that's optimistic, and I'd like to flesh that out with you right after this break. That's Don Goo, an architect, a principal, a former principal, retired principal of Wimberley, Allison, Tongan Goo, which is an architectural firm from Hawaii, which has been, doing projects all around the world. Here on ThinkTech Hawaii, catching up on Kakaako, building urban spaces, an important discussion we have every Wednesday from 3 to 4. We'll be right back.
I'm Hong Jiang, host for Asia in Review on Tuesdays.
And I'm David Day, host for Asian Review on Thursdays. Both of us broadcast our respective shows at 4 p.m.
And my topics tend to deal with questions related to environment, culture, history, and sometimes human rights.
And my shows tend to be on international business, foreign policy, geopolitics, and national security. And you can watch our shows live on the ThinkTech website at thinktechhawaii.com.
And you can also watch us on YouTube or Olalo.
So come join us on Thursdays at 4 p.m. I'm David Day.
And on Tuesdays at 4 p.m., I'm Hong Jiang.
Aloha.
We're live with Don Goo, a retired principal of Wimberley, Allison, Tongan Goo, an important architectural firm in Hawaii. And here on ThinkTech Talks, catching up on Kakaako, talking about building urban spaces and trying to build a consensus too. As it's like they say that before you actually head down the rail, head down the track, you need to have a political consensus. And sometimes we get the sequence wrong about that. But maybe in this case, there's enough at play here, it's enough people thinking about it, and there's enough not yet quite done that we could bring everything together before it's done. Eh?
Well, if there is a vision, very simple vision, to integrate all of Kakaako into a urban space, gathering space, 24/7. If that's a good vision, then we go from there. So I doubt whether the three major developers would say no to that. I doubt whether the community would say no to that. So then the devil lies in the details.
Well, one of the things is there have been renderings. I'm sure you've seen them. Who knows? Maybe you've made them that people really like. It's the renderings of the street scenes in Kakaako.
The trees, the shade,
the sidewalk
shops,
cafes.
buying ice cream, buying shave ice.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
But you know what? People say, or say the naysayers will say, that's just a drawing. I can't count on that. I can if I count on that one day, I'll find the rug pulled out from under me, and none of that will actually exist. What's your answer to that?
Well, that could be true, but that's why you vet owners, developers, and see what their intent, what they have built before, and the quality of what they have done.
Just like an architect. Yeah.
That's right. and you go around and look at what they've done, and you talk to people that have worked with them, whether they're really smoking weed or something else, or are they really? Do they really provide what they say they're going to provide? I mean, it's all about brand quality, and I think with Howard Hughes and with OHA and with KS, we've got three major developers that have credibility. I think the OHA program, as I've heard it, is a different kind of a program. It's more middle level development, more common food, common items.
What do you say to Calvin Say and all those legislators back in '05 who said no residential development in Mackay?
I would stay away from that. I will say this: Mackay should be a job center, because that will make it a better 24/7 gathering place. It needs to have people going there, whether they're residents or whether they're working there. Now, the Burns Medical School there, and perhaps the library that's going there, and
Knock wood.
yeah, something's going to go there. I think we need to have honest to goodness jobs, and the medical and science is going to be good for that area.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because back when, I'm sure you knew him, Ed Cadman, the dean. He had great vision for that area, and he wanted it to be a tech center. He wanted big pharma companies and build a quad around the medical school and have lots of money, lots of jobs pour into the city that way. It never really got off the ground.
Things go up and down. It still isn't over yet. You know, there's still additional land to the side of it where more things can be developed. So it's not over. I mean, and if we wanted to do it, again, incentives for public benefit. If we want that to happen, if our community really wants that to happen, we can make it happen. But we can't make it happen and use yesterday's rules. We have to create some new rules.
So what I get from you, I mean, both in our discussion before the show and during the show, is the key to at least the first step on this is to get a conversation going, but the result of that conversation is updating the rules.
Yes.
So you're talking about the code.
Yep.
And the code is what? I'm not sure how it works, but the HCDA code?
Yep.
Or the city code? Or
Both.
Both.
Because the city code works from, I think, Kapiolani Street or King Street, Mauka. And HCDA is Makai of that.
Yeah.
So both codes need to work together. But there needs to be consensus on a vision first. You know, what do we really want to do? You know, I would like to see us have a 24/7 urban gathering place where the residents in the middle, the cultural activities are Mauka, and the recreation activities are Makai, you know, and joining them together. You know, what we do with McKinley High School can be a significant
It's right there.
change. You know, it's a big campus.
Yes, it's right there.
You know, education is key to our success. So you've got all of the elements there. You need a vision to come together to say, here's how we're going to make it happen. These are the steps that will make it happen. And we'll get the benefits along the way. I mean, you do it in any kind of negotiation. You say, I give you a little here, you give me some.
But isn't there inherent in what you say, isn't there a need for, this is a Yiddish word, a Beispiel, you know, where you say, here, this is a starting point for our discussion. I'm laying it out. Here's a plan. You can have at it, but this is where we start.
Well, there is that. You could say, this is where we start. Or you can say, let's sit down together and work out a plan. You know, but you first work out the plan based on the vision. You know, can you see this as being a very important part of the city of Honolulu? It's going to be different because it's going to have a lot more people there. And they need more open space. They need more restaurants. They need more space to walk around. They need schools. They need all of these things. And we need to provide
I'm sure people would agree.
Yeah.
You know, I went to a wedding. It was actually a local wedding in Florence a couple, 3 years ago. And near the Duomo in Florence, you know, church, there was a square. And it was quite a large square. And all it had was grass and some paths and some low benches, even benches, sorry to say, you could sleep on these benches. I don't know if that's a problem, but the benches were very easy to relax on. And around the square, of course, there was a church or two, got to have that. But then there were a lot of ice cream restaurants, the places, sidewalk
Convenience
cafes,
stores,
convenience stores, a lot of places of interest. And so people came, you know, Don, they came, you said 24/7, they were there. And it was, well, in the middle of the night. It offered them a place away from their home. And they could interact with their friends. They could just spend quiet time. They could read a book. It was their living room, this place.
So what we have, which has been against that outside public experience, is in the U.S., America, we have gotten bigger and bigger homes. But with this recession and poor economy, I noticed the developers are building smaller homes, which will mean that the people who stay in there will want to get outside. So the evolution, the social evolution, is going to be interesting in the dynamic change of this urban space. And we need to sort of anticipate that. We have no pattern really to follow. And the community doesn't have a pattern to follow. But again, the education is understanding how these things come about and the impact of that. And that takes time, takes sitting down with 12 people and discussing it. 12 people with the similar background, similar vocabulary, so that they can all begin to talk among themselves and come to a consensus. Then the next group with their special vocabulary.
Well, I guess my final question, we have about 5 minutes left. My final question to you, which is a question, I told you we would talk about, and which is probably the most important thing, is where do we start on this? Exactly how do we get there? Because I happen to agree with you about, the need for public vision and the need to execute the vision in a way so that everybody's part of the process. But how do we start? Who puts his foot out first on this?
Well, I think each of the three developers, Howard Hughes, KS, and OHA, will step up to the plate. Mm-hmm. If they are given some kind of indication that there is a public need for it, and somebody needs to go the first step, I would guarantee that Howard Hughes, KS, and OHA would step up to the plate. They'll step up modestly because they got to be careful, but I think they will step up to the plate. Then there will need to be this white knight that describes what this vision looks like and can make it palpable in the minds of the public.
You know what, it just occurred to me that, and I've heard this said before, is that this is a huge campaign issue in the elections now coming, because whoever succeeds, or whoever's running could say, I will be the white knight. I will be the lightning rod. I will call these groups together. I will, make this happen. Do you think it's a political thing, or maybe it's the architectural community? Maybe it's guys like you. What role do you see the architects playing? Who steps forward first?
Interesting, who steps forward first. I don't know who's going to step forward first. I really don't know who, but I'm working towards that. There needs to be somebody that has the juice to be able to stand behind of what they say. And that's still KS, Howard Hughes, and OHA. And they need to feel that if they step out there, that somebody's going to follow them or somebody's going to agree with them. So it's a careful going back and forth until people get comfortable with this new idea of a 24/7 gathering place between Ala Moana and downtown.
Why do I feel at the end of the day, at the end of this discussion, and I guess I felt this way before too, is that the architects have a central role in this process. Why? Because they understand these things, they have studied these things, they have practiced these things, they have seen these things materialize or not around the city. They see the city as an architectural, a range of possibilities. And because they are credible to government, they are credible to the people, they can be the intermediaries to actually, if not start, then participate centrally in the process. Don't you agree?
Yes. Well, I'm talking to Scott.
Mm-hmm.
He's part of the leadership of AIA, and to some other people. So, things take a while. I've found in the years that nothing happens overnight. An idea starts, it germinates, it grows, and that's where we are right now.
And that's why we're going to continue to do this little thing of ours, 3 to 4 p.m. every Wednesday, catching up with Kakaako, with guys like Don Goo, who is a retired principal of Wimberley, Allison, Tongan Goo, but who thinks about this stuff a lot. Thank you very much, Don, for talking to us about building urban spaces in Kakaako, the city, and so forth. It's been a delight to talk to you. Aloha.